This video is going to show you solo Grandmaster Nightfall getting platinum rank for the Devil's Lair, which will be the weekly featured Nightfall strike next week, not this week. So my loot will be slightly different to yours if you're doing it next week, so just bear that in mind. The reason why I'm doing it this week is because I want to hurry up and kill my seal already, because I've stalled long enough. If you didn't know, this season what I was doing for content was that I was soloing each featured Nightfall strike per week that it comes out. So Glassware we've done week 1, Light Blade we've done week 2, etc. Exodus Crash obviously we've done this week. So I'll just wait for each one to come up rather than doing like 6 GMs in one day, right, and burning all the content to upload in one day or 1 week. Rather than do it like that, I spread it out a little bit, which has worked out better for this season because it's been a slow season. But next week I'm going to be busier, so I figured that I would just hurry up and get it gilded, get a video on it done, because next week this will be probably one of my last GMs that I do this season, right? So I just figured I would hurry up and get it done already. Not that I've been struggling getting this done or anything. I haven't even touched it. I haven't touched Devil's Lair once until today. I just figured, right, I'll just get on with it and get it over with. So that's why it's up now, right? So as for the loadout, obviously we're on Striker Titan, the best build in the game for Grandmasters, especially this season, hands down. As Devil's Lair is such a short run, I just figured that I'll just use the best loadout for it, and not sort of go off meta too much with it, because you really are handicapping. I really would be handicapping myself for other people, if you know what I mean. If I used a really off-meta run like Cloud Strike or Thunderlord or something. I've done stuff like that in the past anyways. It's there for people to see if you want to see such runs. Not this season, I understand that, but I've done it in the past. And as I said, Destiny's slow right now, so I'm sort of not inspired to do my usual stuff. Right, I'm not super inspired at the minute because, you know, Destiny is what it is at the minute. So, yeah, we're just going to use an effective loadout for someone to emulate, copy it, and they'll have success. And really, that's the essence of the video for the most part. Right, I do like the off-meta stuff, but I need to realize that also people of less skill level won't be able to replicate some weapon loadouts. It is the truth of it. So we'll just use what's in meta right now. The linear fusion rifles, Le Monarque is certainly in meta. Snipers a little bit. Barrier sniper's good. It's alright. Some people like it more than others. I don't mind it. I'm passive to it, to be honest. I kind of like barrier scout. I kind of like just having a primary weapon that's barrier, as long as it's a good long range style weapon. Barrier pulse, barrier scout. I'll have that all any day. But the sniper's good in this run, and I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of high health targets. So if you have 2 precision style weapons, linear plus sniper, the sniper allows you to save on heavy a little bit. It also does a decent job with barriers, and yeah, it saves on ammo. So the sniper's not a bad one to run in this, especially if you're using Le Monarque, because Le Monarque will do everything for you, add clear, overloads. You know, it'll do tick damage for you. The sniper's just the cherry on the top for like the tank section, even the boss it's handy for. So it isn't a bad idea to run a sniper in this. The only downside to running a sniper with a primary and then a heavy is that you will ultimately get less heavy if you just ran double primary. So you need to understand you will definitely get less heavy if you have a special weapon in your loadout, because the game drops 2 types of ammo, green and purple. Whereas if you have double primary, there's no ammo bricks for primary anymore. So the only ammo that will drop is purple, which means more purple. So if you're someone who struggles on heavy, right, then maybe just put on a scout. Right, it's really up to you. Just manage your ammo a little bit better. with that, with the heavy though. But you will get more of it, of course. Just try and get kills with your exotic primary, because that's what's going to generate the heavy as well. So with this room, obviously the 3 waves. Right, now, if you are on Arc Titan, obviously it's going to be easy, but you can really optimize this room on Arc Titan and spawn kill a lot of enemies that come out of those doors. You just need to know when adds come at one point. Like, for example, at the end of each wave, you get a spawn of shanks at the end of each wave. So you need to be aware of that, because you need to not be out of position, because those shanks will melt if you have no cover. So you need to be aware of when phase 1's ending, stuff like that. And when champs come, when the wizards come, when snipers are up, you know, when to use your super, when not to use your super, stuff like that. Because what you need to realise as well is, if you spawn kill some of the adds that come out of the door, it stops them from spreading out. Once they spread out, you can be here a lot longer. I mean, it isn't too bad with Storm Grenade because it tracks everything, but still. So try to get your nades out when as them adds are coming out in the middle and stuff. This is where we stand for safety. This is where you should stand if you're not confident with this GM. But there's a better place to stand, which I'm going to show you in a minute. This is the spawn. This is why we're standing here, so that we can Storm Grenade plus super. That means we spawn kill effectively this barrier. Now, if you don't do that, the barrier will mingle with all the adds and the wizard up top in the middle, making it more difficult for you to deal with the barrier. Not to say that you can't, because you've got a sniper on probably, so you can still deal with the barrier from here, not a problem, but it's even easier, and it makes use of you using a super, right? And there's not many opportunities to use a super, so you may as well use it for something. This is the best place to stand as well when we get to phase 2, because all the adds will fight each other. The Hive and the Fallen Notice will fight each other, while you can just spawn, sort of kill them with your Storm and your bow. Whereas if you, it means your Storm Grade's a little bit more effective from here, as opposed to standing right at the back of this corridor. That's all it's for. Right? Just pay attention though, because they're going to get shanks. We're not quite to phase 2 yet. So here's the end of phase 1. Oh, sorry, the end of phase 2, should I say. And again, just use the Storm. Be careful of the sniper. Champions appeared, but now we're on the final phase. So this is where you still want to stand here, because the Overload will push. You have this really nice angle to peek. You can peek strafe with the bow, right, getting your stun on, while the Storm does massive damage for you. Like, literally one Storm will do it. The key though is having disruptor grenades on. You must have that. Well, you not must, but you should have it on, really. Because sometimes you can't stun them with your bow. Sometimes you might not be able to peek because you've been naded or something. And just having a passive grenade, stun and overload, is a big thing. So I highly recommend, especially in this GM, you put disruptor grenades on, because it lowers output damage against all adds, not just champs. So if you're nading a captain, an arc captain, and he's getting up close, he's overloaded. Means he'll do less damage to you because you've naded him. So disruptor grenades is a big thing. What ends up happening though is you sacrifice one of your bomber mods on your class piece. But it's no big deal. You're getting plenty of nades. Obviously with my build, I'm using the standard Elemental Well High Energy Fire hybrid build. The one that I've been using for 90% of the season on Titan. I'm not using firepower. I feel as though you don't need it. I feel as though that's more for like when you when you're truly speedrunning something, or you're doing DPS, solo DPS to a raid boss and stuff like that. But for the most part, most players don't need firepower, right? What do they need though? Well, an increased damage to the weapons, your solo. So having a 20% damage increase from high energy fire is more beneficial than having more nades, because you've already got loads of nades, because we've got the build on for it, Heart of Inmost, Light, Bomber, etc. So really, do I need more nades? Because No, you don't. The answer is you don't. Definitely not. Unless, as I said, you're like competing for like world record times. But if you are, you're not watching this video. Obviously not. Right? Because you already know all the strats. This video is for people who want a little assistance. You know, and I'm saying to those people, I'm exclusively speaking to those types of people, you don't need the firepower in this build. I recommend Font of Might high energy fires. Now, I didn't go Font of Might. Now, the reason why I didn't, and I don't use Font of Might in GMs, right, for the most part, is because Font of Might is on a timer. And its time is really minute. To get a good Font of Might build going, you need a lot of mods, and you only have 5 mod slots to do this. That's why I think you'd end up investing so much time into Font of Might, where sometimes you need to play passively, where you don't get the benefit of Font of Might. Font of Might's like more like dungeon content or raid content, right? Where you know you're going to start doing DPS to our boss. High energy fire is more than ample. It's 5% less than Font of Might, but it has no timer. You can control when you have high energy fire and when you don't. I value that more than Font of Might. In GM content, I need to exclusively tell you, it's in Grandmasters because they are long. Well, this one isn't long, but it's still a 30-minute thing. It's not like where you know, as I say, you're in a raid and you DPS and a boss. That's totally different. So with this outside section, what you want to do is take things in phases. So what you need to understand is, when you push up so far on the map, you spawn in the vehicles. When you push even further than that, you spawn in more overloads. Don't do that. It's a massive mistake. What you do is you take everything step by step. So step 1 was take out barrier and snipers that you just saw me do. Step 2, overload. You stand up on this elevated position. You would not be able to get the overload otherwise. Stand up on here, because then you can get an angle on the overload. And just keep peppering in with overload stuns and you nade every now and then that's that step done, right? The next step is taking out the snipers at the very back of the map, right? Don't worry about the barrier yet, but the barrier is a very key thing though, that you need to make sure that you take the barrier out before you melt the tank. Because I see a lot of players, they'll end up just wanting to melt the tank and they'll think that that's the safer strat. It's kind of like Glassware, where you have an option. You can melt down the Hydra and then you get loads of overloads, or leave the Hydra up, clear the ad wave that you got, then melt Hydra, then get the next wave. So the waves of enemies are controlled by the tank and where you stand. So like the orange bar snipers at the very back of the map, they're going to cause you havoc later because you need to push up. You need to deal with the barrier and all stuff like that. So if you can deal with them now, like with a storm grenade and your bow, then it makes the next things easier, right? It consecutively makes everything easier if you do it like this. So look, I haven't even pushed up yet. So I haven't spawned in the tank or the 2 brigs, because I want to take out some more snipers that are spawning around about here. So if you stand on left, they'll come to where you are on left. Right, once these ads are taken out, then you deal with brigs. That is the next step. So we'll push up. I know kind of where the brig spawns in. We'll deal with left brig first, because on left side, the tank cannot hit you. The tank, it's impossible for the tank to almost hit you from here. So it means that you can safely do damage to the brig without being killed by the brig or the tank. So just use your storm grenade, overload him, so if he hits you, then he'll do less damage to you, like I was saying before. Once the brig's faceplate comes off, you need to realise that the brig can one-shot you, potentially. So what you want to do with that is storm and run, or use some heavy. The downside of using heavy is, if you use heavy, you've got less heavy for the tank. Unless you've got lots of bricks on the floor. So it's up to you. It depends on your ammo situation. I didn't want to use heavy right here, so I just wanted to use the storm plus bow. Once you dealt with the left brick, then it's right, the right brick, because if you start dealing with the barrier, the brig on right will start shooting at you, so you don't want that either. Obviously, do not do any damage to the tank. If you do damage to the tank, you'll spawn in waves of enemies. You'll spawn in the ships, the skiffs. Now, the skiffs do massive damage to you, and when they come in, fly in, you need to start running around because they can kill you very easily. So it's a case of don't deal any damage to the tank at all yet, right? Just keep doing your storm grenades, your dodges, your bow shots. Like I said, once that faceplate comes off, if you want to do heavy, you can. I actually super it here. That's the only time you can super a brig, bear in mind, is when they're stunned like that. That animation of that faceplate coming off is almost like when you stun a champ type thing. You've got that moment to do damage. So if you want to T-crash, you can, only then though, because if you T-crash an unstunned brig, they'll stomp you. I don't know if you can survive that. I'm not willing to find out. So, yeah, you can T-crash, but just at your own risk. So the next step is obviously leave tank, take barrier. Do not push past that red box. If you do that, you will spawn in a wave of fallen enemies and an overload. That means the barrier will tether the overload. You don't want that. That's when you've got issues. So make sure that you do not push past the red box until you've melted down the barrier. Use heavy on this champ. Don't mess around with this champ, because the barrier has a tendency to teleport behind the hill and stuff. So just get him on one stun if you can. We've spawned in the overload on purpose now because we're taking things step at a time. You know, this strat just involves that you deal with a limited amount of champions at one time. So you're not dealing with like 3-4 champions. You're only ever dealing with like 1-2 maximum. And it's just an easier way of doing it. As you can see, not one skiff has come in yet. Right? So, as I said, they're controlled by the tank. So just make sure that you don't do any damage to the tank, really. It's when you break a leg. It's not when you're dealing damage, it's when you break a leg you get a skiff. Try and deal with that Arc Captain, because that Arc Captain's generally a nightmare. But if you deal with him now, just makes the run smoother. So now it's DPS. I've got Charge of Light as well. I picked up an Elemental well, so this will help me for DPS. It'll save on ammo. We'll use a bit of Sniper. See, as I was saying, when you break the leg on the tank, you get a skiff. That's when you stop doing DPS and you start running around or running a building out the way of the ship. Let the ship go away, fly away, and then you're good. Then you can start doing DPS again. Like I say, you have, let me just think. There's no more barriers to take. So you can spam all your sniper ammo on the tank if you wish. Definitely. Because there's no requirement for a sniper now. All the sniper's going to do is help you out when you've got no heavy. So don't be frightened to use sniper ammo from now on, because there's no more barriers to worry about. That's another reason why having a sniper is really good for this, because as I say, it's going to leave you on a bit of heavy. It's bad luck protection if you're not getting the heavy ammo, stuff like that. When the core opens though, what you need to understand with the tank is your crit multiplier on the tank is far higher. So use heavy when the core opens. You'll be able to melt down the tank easier. Obviously use an arc linear like this, what I've got. Storm Chaser is nowhere near as good as this one, because it hasn't got the range that Pitchglass has. I don't know what Storm Chaser's like on PC. That's actually one thing that has interested me. What's that gun like on PC? But on console, at range, it's poor. Storm Chaser's poor at range. And when I mean range, I'm on about 50, 60 meters. That's what I'm on about. I'm not on about 20 meters. I'm on about like 50, 60 meters. It just isn't as good as a precision frame for hitting crits at range. So that's why we use Pitchglass. Plus, Pitchglass is a very good arc linear. You know, I actually prefer it sometimes. Storm Chaser sometimes I also prefer. It depends on what I'm doing. What range am I fighting champs at? Is it a close quarter nightfall? Is it a long range nightfall? It depends. You know? So, be careful of these invisible marauders. They can actually kill you if both of them melee you. But look how clear the map is now. Generally, there's loads of adds everywhere. I remember doing Devil's Lair in the past, and when I'm fighting this overload, there'll be still tons of adds alive. Not this time. Barely any. There's one Dreg and one champ left. Which actually, the Dreg caused me problems. Even one Dreg caused me problems there because he was nading me and stuff. Now you want to do an ammo run. Make sure you pick up as much heavy, as much special as you've got. It just helps you out. Going to the boss with 0 heavy would be a bad run in my eyes. It means that you spam too much ammo, and that you probably don't have ammo finders on. I don't have ammo finders on because actually on my helmet I had ING fire Ashes to Assets, which Ashes to Assets is that good now that it needs to go on, especially on Arc Titan. So I value using that over the ammo finder. But if you can fit ammo finders in on your build somewhere, then, you know, it's still a nice thing to have. So with the 2 overloads before the boss fight, it's literally just strafe. How good are you with strafing with the bow, really? That's all it is. The Arc Seekers, if you play the pattern right, yeah, the Arc Seekers will hit the wall in front of you and you'll still do damage. Especially with the Monarque. So it's pretty straightforward, this. What I'm trying to do, though, is I'm trying to kill this overload with my nade to get a elemental well, pick up the well to get charge of light. But the storm just quite didn't kill the champ, and he's fell off. So I have to be careful here. I'll use a storm, though. I got my charge of light. I think I T-crash. I recommend that you can T-crash on phase 1 like that, providing that after you've hit the guy, the boss, you immediately 360 turn away and run, right? But the boss will do his enraged void attack, but he can't do it right away if you do your super right away. So you actually have like say 2-3 seconds of safety to do a super and provide you full HP and get out of there, right? But you need to execute it properly. If you don't, the shanks will start to come out as you've T-crashed the boss, so you can't be slow about it. It has to be immediate if you're going to do it. If you're not immediate with it, don't T-crash at all. Save it for adds then. If you're not confident with that, use your sniper, use your heavy. Now I use the ground floor and this floor. When adds come out, if I need to DPS the boss on any of the phases, I'll go down below and deal with damage, because you've got sort of time where the adds de-aggro you, where they're not interested in you, so you've got like 2-3 shots of linear in you, and then you have to run away. And that's sort of how you can do damage. The boss is already immune though, right, because I got the damage in. This is where you want to deal with all the void servitors. This is what's so good about the Monarque in this. This is why I actually really picked it. If you don't have any void weapon at this boss fight, or if you don't have Arbalest, then it really slows the whole thing down, because you're dealing with a lot of void servitors. For every phase you're getting the void servitors. So without a void weapon, yeah, then it struggles. Back in the days when I used to do this, if I was on Void Walker or Sentinel, I would use an Osmosis Auto or an Osmosis Scout or whatever, right? And then I would have an Arc and then a Solar. So I'd have all 3 elements to deal with this. And Devil's Lair used to be such a long run for everybody. Especially when he first came out, everybody was over an hour. Most people. The best players were like 50 minutes. But the time, I'm on about when he first came out, mind, so don't quote me. I'm on about when he first came out. But every season Devil's Lair's come out, the time has improved for people. Even if they're not speedrunning it, so to speak, everyone's runs are quicker now. Since resistance changes, since Arc 3.0. It's really just what it is now. If you go and have a look at, as I say, some people, like one of my runs was like an hour and 30 minutes on Devil's Lair. I think it was an hour and 30 or 40 or something. And it was just like, now we're doing runs in 30 minutes. Not even optimizing, not even speedrunning. Not even thinking about speedrunning. So the game is massively different now for GMs. Now, some people would say that they're too easy, but were they not maybe too hard? Were they not balanced too difficult? I don't think they were. I don't think it was the Nightfall that was balanced too difficult. I think Resilience was broke. Resilience, if you don't know, has been broke since 2017. It got fixed last season, right? Resilience now works. You can spec into it. Things are great. Let's keep it. Now, people are wanting to nerf it. Why? I mean, I'm somebody who's played with Resilience. A tier 3 Resilience was the best resistance that you should go with. Like, generally, you wouldn't want to go over tier 3. Sometimes tier 6 to avoid snipers in the old GM meta. But now, straightforward, I can put tier 10 Resilience on, tank more damage. What's bad about that? People are saying, well, it's too easy now. Well, no, it's because the strikes are too easy. The design, how they design strikes now are not... They're based on the old game. Right, they're not based on 3.0 subclasses. What's based on 3.0 subclasses is like Lightblade, Birthplace of the Vile, strikes that launched this year. Glassware, that's based on sort of 3.0 a little bit, because Glassware is a bit more difficult than the rest. It's just that this strike is, let's face it, 2014. It is that strike. It is the same strike we've been playing, but with added champs. That is it. So our subclass, our power now is through the roof, and we're playing strikes that are years old, right? People want more strikes brought back from D1. I don't personally, unless they're brought back in such a meaningful way where, right, okay, this is like really good. I just want the new stuff that they've designed based around the 3.0 classes. So everything's tuned and balanced. Because like I say, Birthplace is an example of a well-tuned Nightfall that takes a bit of thought, especially at the boss fight. Right, Glassware is a really well-designed one in my opinion. Lightblade is and it isn't. You know that I've got gripes with it. I've mentioned about it in the past. It's more with the boss. But at least it's got some resistance there to you. You know. Strikes like Fallen Saber and Devil's Lair, they're old school. They're too old to deal with what we've got nowadays. So that's what I think about it. You know, I don't want them to nerf Resilience. I want to make the new content that they make to be harder. But I want them to keep the Resilience. They must keep the Resilience the same, or at the very least nerf it by 10-15%. That's it. Because if they, I don't want to go back. We're going backwards if they do that, in my opinion, right? With the Resilience changes. So we're on the final phase. Just about coming up to. It's the same thing I've been repeating. This is obviously where you stand from. The 2 overloads pushed. You need to make sure that you push. You take an opportunity to take them out, right, when they push you. Because if you clear out all the ads, one overload will hide, one will push. But the one that hides stands at the top of that building outside. Sort of hard to explain. And that means you've got to go where the boss is to take the overload. So try to sort of not mess around taking down the 2 overloads. They're pretty easy to take out, as you saw me do just there. But we've got the final servitor. We've got ammo max for phase 3, so that's great. I'm going to spam some here. And it's really just a case of now melting down the boss. There's no more champs. So in theory, you don't need to take out any of the ads. You can just melt the boss. But I'll just take a couple of moments to sort of mention, because I think this it's pretty much done now. So next week is going to be God of War Ragnarok releasing, which I want to cover in some capacity. I'm at work heavily next week, which is a shame. I wish God of War was coming out this week as opposed to next week. So I'm not going to be able to cover it at launch. Like the day it launches, I'm not going to be like freaking soloing it on hard mode and doing this, that and the other. Like some people will have more time than me. But I'll eventually cover it at my own pace. Right? And we'll just see how it goes. Right? As I said, it's coming out next week, so that's what I'm going to focus on. There's going to be less focus on Destiny. Doesn't mean I'll stop covering it, but obviously, you know, it's going to be almost like an event when that game comes out. But that was a solo GM on this. That's to finish the Conqueror sale as well. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.